getting random FPS drops, frame time spikes, or micro stutters in Rust, even though your average FPS looks fine, the problem might not be your GPU or CPU. Windows background activity, power management, game mode, GPU scheduling, and startup processes can all affect how consistently your frames are delivered. So let's go through the Windows settings that matter most for Rust. Let's start. Step 1. Enable Windows Game Mode. First, make sure Windows Game Mode is enabled. Go to Settings, arrow Gaming, arrow Game Mode, and turn Game Mode on. Game Mode is designed to prioritize gaming workloads and reduce interference from background activity. For Rust, this is one of the first settings I'd test. It's simple, easy to reverse, and specifically designed for gaming. Tired of lag, high ping, and packet loss ruining your games? Gear up. Booster optimizes your connection for lower latency, smoother gameplay, and faster shot registration. It works automatically in the background with no complicated setup. Download Gear Up Booster, free from the link in the description, and enjoy lag-free gaming. Step 2. Enable HAGS. Next, let's enable hardware-accelerated GPU scheduling. Go to Settings Arrow System, Arrow Display Arrow Graphics Arrow, change default graphics settings, turn hardware-accelerated GPU scheduling on. Once you've done that, restart your PC. The guide notes that HAGS can improve latency and frame time consistency, although the results can vary depending on your GPU and driver. So if Rust actually feels worse after enabling it, just test it with HAGS disabled again. Step 3. Fix your Windows power configuration. Now let's make sure Windows isn't unnecessarily limiting your CPU performance. Open Control Panel Arrow, Hardware, and Sound Arrow power options. The first guide recommends testing the high performance plan, especially in CPU-bound gaming situations where CPU downclocking could contribute to stuttering. However, the second guide recommends balanced for modern Windows systems because modern CPU boosting can make high performance unnecessary. So I wouldn't blindly switch power plans. For Rust, test your current plan first. If you notice your CPU clocks dropping during FPS drops, try high performance and compare your frame times. The goal here isn't simply to use as much power as possible. The goal is stable performance. Step 4. Clean up startup programs. Now let's deal with some of the background applications that can use CPU and RAM while Rust is running. Press Ctrl plus Shift plus Escape. Then open Task Manager Arrow Startup Apps. From here, disable anything you don't need starting with Windows. For example, unnecessary launchers, cloud sync applications, RGB software you don't need running creative software. Other background utilities, but make sure you keep essential hardware software such as GPU drivers, audio drivers, input-related software, Windows security. The idea isn't to disable everything. You just want to reduce unnecessary background load while keeping the important Windows and hardware components running. Step 5. Reduce background app activity. Next, let's reduce some unnecessary background activity. Go to Settings Arrow, Apps Arrow Installed Apps. For applications that support it, click 3 dots, Arrow, Advanced Options, Arrow Background App Permissions, then set unnecessary applications to Never. Just don't disable Windows security or other components you actually depend on. This can reduce background activity that's competing with Rust for system resources. Step 6. Reduce unnecessary telemetry activity. If you're getting random disk or CPU spikes while playing Rust, the guides recommend reducing unnecessary telemetry and diagnostic activity. Press Win plus R. Type services.msc, then find Connected User Experiences and Telemetry. The first guide recommends disabling this service, while the second guide takes a more conservative approach and recommends setting telemetry-related services to manual instead of aggressively disabling them. For a safer approach, I'd start with manual, and don't start randomly disabling Windows services. The goal is simply to reduce unnecessary background activity without breaking Windows features. Step 7. Optimize Windows visual effects. This isn't going to magically double your Rust FPS, but it can reduce some unnecessary desktop overhead. Press Win plus R, type sciencedm.cpl, go to Advanced Arrow Performance Arrow Settings. From here, you can select Adjust for best performance or manually disable unnecessary animations while keeping smooth edges of screen fonts. This is a small optimization, but it's also very easy to reverse. Step 8. Test full screen optimizations. Now, this one is game dependent, so don't just disable it without testing. Find the Rust executable, right-click it and select Properties Arrow Compatibility, then test Disable Full Screen Optimizations. Click Apply Arrow OK, launch Rust and compare your frame times. If your stuttering improves, keep the setting. If performance gets worse, simply revert it. The optimization guide specifically warns that full screen optimization can help some games while causing problems in others. Step 9. Check your NVIDIA settings. If you're using an NVIDIA GPU, open NVIDIA Control Panel Arrow, manage 3D settings for Rust, test these settings, Power Management Mode Arrow, prefer Maximum Performance, Texture Filtering Dash, Quality Arrow, Performance Threaded Optimization to On Vertical Sync to off for latency. The guide recommends low latency mode depending on the game and whether the game already provides its own latency technology. So, don't stack multiple latency features blindly. Test the game after each important change. Step 10. Check your GPU driver. Next, let's make sure your GPU driver isn't causing the problem. Use the official driver package for your GPU. For NVIDIA, use the Game Ready driver. During installation, the first guide recommends custom installation, then clean install, then restart your PC, and don't automatically assume the newest driver is going to be the fastest driver for Rust. If a new driver introduces problems, compare it against a known good driver. Step 11. Check for thermal throttling. If Rust starts with good FPS but performance gets worse after you've been playing for a while, this is something you definitely want to check. Use a hardware monitoring tool and watch. CPU temperature, CPU clocks, GPU clocks, thermal throttling indicators. If your CPU or GPU gets too hot, Windows and the hardware can reduce clock speeds, and that can create major FPS drops and inconsistent frame times. So before applying aggressive software tweaks, clean out dust, improve airflow, and make sure your cooling system is working correctly. Step 12. Keep Windows and drivers updated. Finally, make sure Windows itself is up to date. Go to Settings Arrow, Windows Update, install any available updates and restart when required. The second guide specifically recommends keeping Windows Update enabled rather than blocking it. Do the same with your GPU drivers, but if a particular Rust update or driver introduces performance problems, test different driver versions instead of assuming the latest one is always better. Final check. Now that you've applied the safe changes, restart your PC and test Rust in the same location, with the same graphics settings in a similar gameplay situation, and comment me how much FPS you gain.